they hit some solid bedrock. Then they had to reinforce that base down there with concrete. 12 hours straight of pouring concrete into those holes to establish those caisson concrete block foundations. Then once you finally get above ground, you have these steel beams that curve in, carrying the weight of your building back towards that center elevator block that goes down deep into the ground. Also has this nice reflective on the side where you can see yourself taking a boat tour. 150 North Riverside. Majority of that building there cantilevered off of that center block base of the building itself. Designed by the Getch Partners back in 2017. Now the Getch Partners did such an incredible job with that building that they were able to come back and establish this building here coming into view on our left. On our left here we have 110 Ragged Drive. It will be known as the Bank of America Tower once it's all said and done. It's going to be a 56-story office building. 56-story office building going up here on our River's Edge. Building up our River's Edge out here in Chicago. Excited to see what it looks like when it's all said and done here. 56-story office building. And right next door to it, we have another building designed by Graham, Anderson, Prost, and White. Those same people who gave us the Wrigley building and the Merchandise Mart are now back giving us our Civic Opera building here on our left. Civic Opera building, another great example of Art Deco with those recessed ribbon windows, vertical racing stripes, limestone cladding. Now also with Art Deco, you're sometimes going to have a calling back to ancient civilizations. Calling back to Greeks, the Aztecs, Egyptians, the Mayans. So as you look at the building here, I want you to notice these slightly creepy but mostly cool Greek mask established across the backside of this building. That Greek influence for the building there. And if you look at this opera as a whole, you begin to notice it looks like a giant throne. That giant throne-like structure with that major setback to it. Oh. Now surrounding spaces in the back of that throne are office spaces, while the seat of the throne itself is an opera set. The idea they had back in the day, lease out the office spaces, use that money to support the opera. It was a great idea. It's just kind of sad that opera opened up 2 weeks before the stock market crash. Yeah, the opera didn't do so well right out the gate. A lot of the country didn't do well during that time. The country went through the Great Depression, went to war. By the time it came out of all of that, the mindset of the country has shifted. In the 60s, people really valued the idea that less is more. Bare bones essentials, that's what was important. And we needed to reflect those ideas within our architecture. And the style that came about to do that for us is over here on our right, black box modernism. Right here we have Gateway Center 1 and this twin building just across the street, Gateway Center 2. Twin black box modernist buildings designed by the architectural firm Skidmore, Owings & Merrill. Now black box modernism, to be honest, may not look like much to us today, but this was a radical design back in the 60s. They stripped away all that decoration and ornamentation we're looking at so far and just stayed with a nice, sleek, minimal design to your building. It's just an office building that looks like an office building. Now within black box modernism, people look out for your 3 S's. Your 3 S's, your skeleton, your skin, and your space. Now the skeleton of your building is that steel frame that holds everything up. Skin of your building is that glass curtain wall that holds it all in. And your space is a nice warm social plaza that wraps around the base of the building that counteracts that cold steel look of the building itself. Skeleton, skin, and space of black box modernism. That less is more design in the 60s. Skidmore, Owings & Merrill there. Now those black boxes like it were popping up all throughout the city and people loved it until they hated it. And said, okay, we get it. We can build a giant black box. What else can we do? So, Skidmore, Owings & Merrill, the people who gave us those buildings, they went back to the drawing board. They started working on a new architectural design, something with more of a shocking sense of beauty to it. And they call this new building Gateway Center 3, over here on our right. A giant white box. Just what people wanted. This is a great example of what we call international style. International style, we're just softening up black box modernism a bit, sticking with some neutral themes, simple white concrete cladding. They say during the 70s, what you can do is take a building like this, place it anywhere in the country, it fits in perfect. Those neutral designs of the 70s. But as you can imagine, neutral gets old pretty quick. So, in the 80s, Skidmore, Owens and Merrill gave the people Gateway Center 4, the final building in the series here on our right, where you can see the previous generation of Gateway Center 3 reflected in the side of the building itself. Gateway Center 4 there, another great example of contextualism on the river. Now we see some other signs of contextualism. We have this dark green colored tint to the glass matching the dark green color of the river. We also have a curve on the backside of the building acknowledging the curve of the river. And then there's my favorite feature, this overall ripple wave effect you see going across the backside of the building. Now they pinched in the corner edges of each window pane to allow that center glass to bubble out, to create this overall ripple wave effect across the building, making that building look as if it's rising up out of the river itself. Contextualism there, that site-specific beauty. So right there in those past 4 buildings, Skidmore, Owens and Merrill really showing us how architectural designs can transition over time. From lessons and ideas of the 60s with black box modernism, into the neutral ideas of the 70s with international style, and landing in the 80s with contextualism, buildings that show off the beauty of the environment around us. The Gateway series there. And right next door we have the building featured in some popular movies. Top of the Dark Knight movie, the Joker and his goons are running across the top of the Gotham Bank. They're down below robbing the Gotham Bank. They drive a bus into the side of the Gotham Bank, but they were actually robbing our Art Deco post office here. Also in the Transformers series, Optimus Prime and his gang of giant robots, Bumblebee and all those machines, often spent some time hidden away within our Art Deco post office. This is one of the headquarters in the movies. Featured in a lot of popular movies here, this is one of the world's largest post offices. I mean, right now, we're about to head underneath an 8-lane highway. An 8-lane highway that casually runs through the middle of the post office like it's no big deal. A very large post office. Now, as you can imagine, the size of this building often got in the way of its function. Elevators within that building would often break down. Workers would complain that it was easier to ship mail outside of that building than it was to ship within it. So we had to abandon it. But it is a Chicago landmark, which means no tearing it down. So right now you're looking at the largest renovation project going on in this country. We're going to renovate it to some new and modern office spaces and establish a 4-acre park on the roof of that building. 4-acre park going up on the roof of that building. They're excited to see what that looks like when it's all said and done. But as you can imagine, it's going to take quite some time to complete that park and establish those renovations throughout the building. So for now, we have to leave behind our old post office, but no worries, because we simply moved right next door into our brand new post office. Oh yes. To say about the new post office. I mean, it's efficient, you know. They got a lot of trucks. They look pretty clean, not a lot of rust. But once you're tired of looking at that, enjoy this open plot of land here. Now they say out here in Chicago we have 2 seasons. We have winter, and we have construction. Either we're building or we're freezing. Sometimes we gotta do both. But this time around, we're building up our river's edge. Now remember, Chicago's changing its relationship to this river and is transforming the city, making it very popular to live along the river nowadays, and we have to meet those demands. So over here, 5 new residential buildings are well underway or just completed. They've just finished stretching the Riverwalk out this way. It's not even a month old. We're going to continue to add some plazas in between the buildings over here. Some kayak loading docks are going in, some water taxi docks, really building up our river's edge. Now, this is just a taste of the type of development that's going to continue to stretch down the south branch of the river. Building up our river's edge there. Now, right next door to all this great development, we see a building that has been here since the 80s. Curvilinear design throughout the building. Not a lot of right angles. Looks kind of like those corncob towers we saw earlier. That's because Bertram Goldberg is back once again with that city within a city design. But this time we're going to call it River City. Now, River City has a year-round marina to it. There's a bunch of bubblers out there in that marina. Keeps the water agitated just enough throughout the winter so that it doesn't freeze over. So people can literally leave their boats parked out there all year round. Talk about convenience. Also, if you look on the first floor of the building, especially up ahead here behind these three flags, if you look in the windows there, you're gonna notice a lot of childlike drawings, some trees,
Indian flag only.
butterflies, and daisies. You see there's a preschool on the first floor of that building. So what you can do is drop your little one off at preschool, hop in your boat, take a trip around the river, come back. Maybe you want to work out at one of the fitness centers in there. Maybe you want to do some shopping at some of the retail shops in there. Maybe you work at one of the office spaces in there. Convenience, that city within a city design. Work, live, and play all within your building. It's an introvert's dream world. River City. But now that we've entered into this peaceful section of the river, I'd like to take you all back in time and talk about a tragedy that occurred over here. Take you back to the year 1871 in the month of October. October 8th around 9 p.m. at night. Now, we were on this boat back then. And we were to look back over here behind this white fence here behind the marshals. What we'd be looking at is the site of Mrs. Catherine O'Leary's barn. Now, Miss Catherine O'Leary, sweet lady, she had a barn. Within that barn, she had a cow by the name of Daisy. And Mrs. O'Leary loved her cow Daisy. And on that night, Mrs. O'Leary grabbed a lantern. She went into that barn to check on her cow, and that cow was okay. But Mrs. O'Leary left that lantern in there with that cow Daisy. Daisy accidentally kicked it over and started the Great Chicago Fire of 1871, right over there in that location. Now that fire blazed on for 20 minutes before firefighters showed up on the scene. Which doesn't seem like a long amount of time. We've been on this boat for a little longer than 20 minutes. But back then, Chicago's going through a drought. 3 months of little to no rain in a city that was at the time mostly made out of wood. So as you can imagine, 20 minutes that fire blazed on quickly got out of hand. Now once that fire reached this river, everybody had a sigh of relief. Fire meets river, river puts out fire, but no. The Chicago River turned its back on Chicago. Because Chicago turned its back on the river. Sewage, waste, lumber, debris, fats and oils dumped recklessly into this river. So much so that the surface of this river caught fire itself. Also, the winds that night continued to push that fire throughout that dry city of Chicago, allowing it to continue to burn for 36 hours. 36 hours the city of Chicago burned. Can you imagine your hometown burning for 36 hours? By the time that smoke finally cleared, unfortunately 300 people had lost their lives. More than 17,000 buildings and homes were destroyed. About 100,000 people left homeless. 60% of what was Chicago at that time burned down. Tragedy. One thing you gotta know about Chicago is that this is a city that endures. We endure cold winters, bad baseball seasons, bad football seasons, basketball, don't ask about it right now. But we don't give up, you know? We just keep on fighting until we get that victory. And back in 1871, they did not give up on this city. What they decided to do was invite architects into the city, and they told them, hey, look, you have a clean slate to work with here. Architects, come into our city, help us rebuild, and at the same time, you get to make a name for yourself. And to this day, architects love to come in and add to our diverse skyline, giving us this view we're enjoying right now. Our city of Chicago off at the South Branch here. From tragedy to triumph, that's the story of Chicago. Take a moment to enjoy this view. And as you're enjoying the view, if anybody's looking for $1 million fixer-upper, please take over our old Art Deco power station here. Some of the danger buildings, listen, nobody takes it over, they're just gonna knock it down. But if you do buy it and fix it up, you will be mentioned on the tours, I can guarantee you that. But that old Art Deco power station there, also designed by Graham, Anderson, Prost, and White. And take a moment to enjoy this view. We're also about a little bit on halfway of the point of the tour. But enjoy the view for this moment. Mrs. O'Leary and that lovely cow Daisy, because they didn't actually start that fire. You see, that story I told you is the same story that newspapers told back in the day because they didn't know how the fire started. Now don't get me wrong, there were a lot of facts in that story. For example, the fire did start over this direction by Mrs. O'Leary's barn. Firefighters did take 20 minutes to show up on the scene because they were accidentally sent in the wrong direction. Surface of this river did catch fire itself, and the city did burn for 36 hours. All of that is very true. But how it all began in the first place, to this day we do not know. But instead of admitting that they didn't know, newspapers just blamed Mrs. O'Leary and framed her innocent cow Daisy. Mrs. O'Leary and that cow faced a lot of hate back in the day. But it's quite all right, because the city of Chicago officially stepped up and exonerated Mrs. O'Leary in the 90s. Oh yeah, the 1990s, much after she had already passed. But you know, hopefully she forgives us from beyond the grave. Mrs. O'Leary and that innocent cow Daisy. But back into the architecture in front of us, because right now we're entering into the territory of the royal family. Now the royal family is a series of skyscrapers that play well together with each other, much like a lovely little family. First member of that family I'd like to introduce you to is our princess, located here on our right. There's a building with a statue on top of it. Statue on top of a triangle-shaped tin-looking roof. Art Deco design underneath all of that. That is our old Board of Trade building, the princess and the royal family. Now that statue on top of the old Board of Trade, that is the goddess of grain and agriculture series. We placed the goddess of grain and agriculture on top of the old Board of Trade building because grain futures was some of the first things traded within that building. Series, we get our name cereal from her. That goddess of grain and agriculture on top of the old Board of Trade building. Old Board of Trade itself, the princess and the royal family. Now the queen in the royal family can be located right in front of us. She has a barrel-like crown on her head, pink granite racing down her facade. This is 311 South Wacker, our queen in the royal family. Now that barrel-like crown is filled with 1,800 fluorescent tubes that shine bright at night, but not as bright as it originally did. Because when they first turned on that crown, they noticed it was messing with the migration patterns of birds. We think the birds were mistaking it for the moon. They fly around and around, get all disoriented, crash into it. Very sad. But now during migration season, we do not turn that crown on at all just to be safe. And even when we do turn it on, it doesn't shine nearly as bright as it originally did. That's 311 South Wacker, our queen in the royal family. Now the court jester can be easily located if you keep a lookout for a building with balconies. Balconies that look like somebody ran through the office, opened up every filing cabinet, and then stormed out. Yeah, that's right. That's 235 Van Buren right there. Our court jester. Now they wanted those balconies on the side to mimic the traffic down below. So people who are stuck in traffic can look at the side of that building and see more traffic and find a sense of beauty in all of it. 235 Van Buren, that traffic style design on the side. Our court jester. But on to the main event, the thing you all came to see, the king of our skyline, tallest skyscraper in Chicago, tall, dark, and handsome. Some people say it's my twin, is our very own Sears Tower. Now, if you were to walk about the base of that Sears, you might find a funny way of spelling Sears. They spell it W-I-L-L-I-S. Here in Chicago, that's pronounced Sears. that Willis is silent. Most important fact on this tour. But what actually happened back in 2009, the Willis Insurance Company, they're a great company. They leased out 3 floors within that building. But he also got a couple of years worth of naming rights out of that deal. And with those naming rights, they decided to change the name of this iconic building from Sears Tower to Willis Tower, which upset a lot of Chicago natives. So as you walk about Chicago, you're gonna hear some people refer to this as the Sears Tower. Some people do refer to it as the Willis Tower. I sometimes call it the Swillis Tower just to make everybody happy. But no matter what you call it, it's still the tallest skyscraper in Chicago. Standing at a whopping 1,451 feet, designed by Bruce Graham and engineered by Dr. Fauser Khan back in the 1970s. Now, what they wanted to do for Sears back in the day was build for them the world's tallest office building in the windy city of Chicago. Ran into some issues, but they cleverly overcame that wind factor by embracing the bungle tube. See, instead of building one super tall city skyscraper that would blow all over the place in the wind, they built 9 individual skyscrapers and bundled them all together. Each about 75 feet by 75 feet, stopping off of different floors. As you look at the Sears Tower now, you'll notice that 2 of the towers go to the 50th floor. 2 more go to the 66th floor. 3 make it up to the 90th floor. Only 2 make it all the way to the top, to the 110th floor. 9 individual towers bundled together there, standing strong against the wind. But the building itself still is a lot of the sway, up to 18 inches in any given direction. That's its maximum allotted sway factor, 18 inches. They say if you're having a meeting on the top floors, you gotta have coffee and Dramamine available for everybody. Account for that sway factor. 18 inches of sway. Our Sears Tower there. Now on the other side of this bridge here, we're gonna have a building that unfortunately begins to block our view of the Sears Tower. Rude. But that's all right. Because on the back side of this building, on this concrete slab here, they gave us a nice art piece to enjoy in the meantime. Now a bunch of squiggly lines is what I thought it was at first. But if you look closely at this building, look closely at those lines, you'll notice that this is actually a map of the Chicago River. That Y shape at the top, that's Wolf Point, which we're headed back towards right now. And that randomly placed red box, that is the building itself. They literally put themselves back on the map. There's a lot of ego in that building. But back over to that Sears Tower. Now if you look up at the top of that tower, you're gonna notice 4 glass boxes that protrude off the side of the building. Might even see some people walking around up there. 4 glass boxes extending off the side of the building. That is our observation deck, the sky deck. That observation deck, the sky deck there. I like to call it my nightmare. Because what you can do if you're braver than me is go up to the 103rd floor of that tower, step out of one of those glass boxes, look about you on a clear sky day, you'll see the city of Chicago, you'll see the state of Illinois. And if you're really lucky, you're really brave, you'll look underneath your toes and you'll see 1,300 feet down to the streets of Chicago. Some people say it's fun. I say taking a boat tour is more fun. That's just me. But if you don't have good lights, I definitely recommend checking it out. That view is incredible. But just remember, before you step out of those glass boxes, that building is allowed to sway up to 18 inches in any given direction. Enjoy the ride. But that observation deck, the sky deck there. But once again, the Sears Tower is 1,451 feet. You're gonna get one more view of it here on the other side of this bridge if you look up. And as you look at it this last time on the other side of this bridge, I want you to imagine the tallest building in the world right now, which is that Burj Khalifa out in Dubai, as we may know. Now the Burj Khalifa out in Dubai is 2,717 feet. 1,451 feet. Burj Khalifa, 2,717 feet. Now, the only reason I mentioned that much taller structure out in Dubai that almost doubles the height of our Sears Tower is because it's designed by Chicago native project, Jeddah Towers. It's going to be out in Saudi Arabia. Now, Jeddah Towers is set to be a kilometer high. Now, in comparison to our Sears Tower, that's like if you took the Sears Tower, stacked another Sears Tower on top of it, and then added 500 feet above all of that. That's how tall Jeddah Towers is set to be. A kilometer high building. Adrian Smith, that world's tallest architect, earning that nickname. Be sure to look them up and look up that project. We've already started on it. Of course, they have a long way to go.